The awakening. Tell me about Shuangyu, Teg said, circling. She lied to me about what I was. What are you? A ghola, a copy of a dead man. Not a copy. If we recover the memories, you will be Duncan Idaho in every way that matters. And if we can't, then you'll remain what you are. A very capable 15-year-old with no past and only what the sisterhood chooses for you. Duncan's jaw tightened. I won't be their stud. No? Then what? They'll find you. Fight? They'll subdue you. The sisterhood has thousands of reverend mothers. You're one ghola with incomplete training and no allies. I have you. No, I'm a Bashar. My loyalty is to my oath. A lie, but Duncan's nascent truth-sayer ability was already wavering. Duncan lunged. Teg parried, but the force jarred his shoulder. Duncan drove forward with desperate rage. You're trying to make me fight? Is that what you wanted? Teg pivoted and struck the precise spot at the base of Duncan's spine where the earlier training had created a minute weakness. Duncan dropped, body arched, a raw expulsion of agony. His eyes went wide and something moved behind them. Leto, the voice came in ancient Gaelic, then raw and rough. Damn you, Leto! The cellular barriers broke. Memories flooded in. Gedi Prime, Sardaukar, and Harkonnen uniforms, blades, the certainty of death. I. Duncan convulsed, reliving the moment he had chosen to die to let Paul escape. Then, long silence, the dark of the axolotl tank. His shudders subsided. He looked up, steady. You're not Leto. You have his face, but you're not him. I'm Miles Teg, a descendant. The sisterhood bred me to trigger your memories. The sisterhood. Duncan sat up, testing his body. They didn't just want me to remember. There's something they put inside me. The Tleilaxu, something besides the memories. Well, deal with that later. What do you remember? I remember my mother's face, the Duke's voice, Paul as a boy. I remember the Harkonnens. I remember dying. He stood, movements now those of a sword master. And I remember that every time they brought me back, they used me. Teg met the ancient young eyes and saw the beginning of an alliance bound not by oaths but by the simpler bond of two soldiers, each used by powers they distrusted. The imprinter entered. She stopped. His awake. Fully, Duncan said. I know what you're supposed to do, imprinter. If you touch me again, I will kill you. Without hesitation, without regret. Do you understand? She looked at Teg. He said nothing. I understand, she said. Duncan turned to the wall where the Harkonnen griffins gleamed. He pressed his palm flat against one. I remember what they did, and I remember that the Bene Gesserit let them do it because it served the sisterhood's purposes. You're no better, just more subtle. Fair? Her face was pale. I died. They grew me in a tank. They sent you to seduce me into loyalty, and you think I care about fair? The girl who rode the worm. On Rakis, Odrade had been consolidating control. The Seeker attack that killed Kipuna had exposed the priesthood's conspiracy, and the senior security mother now kept Shiana in her own quarters at Dari's Balat. High Priest Albertus, who had plotted against her, was summoned to the courtyard. She stood beside the dry fountain, back to the sun. I know about the conspiracy, the Seeker attack, the face dancer infiltration, the Tleilaxu spy you allowed to listen to our negotiations. Albertus went gray. I was protecting the faith. The faith is a story the tyrant told to keep people from killing each other. It served its purpose, but the tyrant is dead, and you are a weak-boned man who thought he could outmaneuver a reverend mother. She leaned close. If God knows everything you think and plan, what chance did your little conspiracy ever have? His knees buckled. He caught himself on the fountain edge. I could replace you with a face dancer, she said, but I won't. You remain high priest. You do exactly what I tell you, and you will announce that the Tleilaxu master accompanies Shiana and me on a desert pilgrimage. Go. Albertus stumbled away, a broken tool. The way into the desert was open. The language of the dance. Next morning, Odrade watched the great square fill for the Siainok, the dance diversion. The priests called a meaningless relic of the tyrant's era bulo. 5 naked dancers moved in a pattern that seemed chaotic but wasn't. Steps repeated at 100-beat intervals. Hand gestures were a code. Abdominal muscles rippled in another, and the shifting positions created transient patterns visible only from above. She turned. Shiana stood in the doorway. You understand it, don't you? The girl's face went very still. I don't know what you mean. When you first watched the CI knock from this window, your pulse accelerated. You were excited. Why? A long silence. Then very quietly, because it's what the worm speaks. The big worm. When I rode him the first time, I didn't tell him where to go. I just knew. When I danced on the sand for the priests, I wasn't praying. I was telling the worms to come. Odrede's stomach went cold. The priesthood had been cultivating a channel to the worms all this time, and she had not seen it. She forced her breathing steady and looked back at the dancers below, the same hand gesture repeated. A ripple of abdominal muscle, answered by a shift in the crowd. Movement and rhythm. The tyrant made the worms carry a language, she said. Shiana said nothing. Her eyes were old. The tyrant was a worm for 3,500 years. Beho he dissolved into sand trout. He must have imprinted them, made them carriers of something he wanted to outlast his death. Like the pearls of awareness, Shiana said. Yes, and if the worms carry fragments of his consciousness, then the Cyanic language is the language of his thought, a language you, for whatever reason, were born able to speak. We're going into the desert, the senior security mother said, to the place where the tyrant died, and you're going to help me understand what he left behind? The worm ride. They left Keen at dawn, Odrede, Shiana, and the Tleilaxu master, whose arms had healed but whose humiliation had not. At the edge of the sand, the girl removed her sandals and scanned the desert. The worm is close, 2 kilometers. He's been waiting. She stepped onto the open sand, raised her arms, and began to move a personal dance of steps and small gestures. The ground trembled. The worm rose, 70 meters of segmented heat and violence. Its circular mouth opened and closed in rhythm with her dance. The Tleilaxu master trembled, lips moving in a silent prayer in the ancient Islamiyat tongue. Shiana turned, face flushed. The worm is my friend. He will take us where I ask. She made a beckoning motion. The worm lowered its head into a steep ramp. They climbed hot, slippery rings, the creature breathing beneath them. Hold the rings, she said. He will go where he wants to go. And the worm began to move, heading straight for the place the other memory was already screaming about, where the tyrant had died. Siege Tabor. 3 hours later, the worm slowed at a broken line of stone, all that remained of the Sarir's ancient wall. It stopped, lowered its head, and they dismounted. The worm vanished into the sand with a sound almost like a chuckle. A fissure opened in the rock. Odrede stepped in, warning sensation shrieking. Sand collapsed, carrying them 20 meters down into a vast underground chamber, a Fremen sietch with soot-stained walls and a catch basin's sietch Tabor, she said, where Stilgar and Muad'Dib gathered before the jihad, where the tyrant hid his spice hoard. She climbed rock stairs and found a corridor, then 5 mummified bodies, each stabbed upward below the sternum. The famine times, tortured, killed, but they didn't find what they were looking for. Behind a false wall, she discovered a small room lined with bricks of melange 90,000 long tons worth, but it was not the spice that stopped her. A word was burned into the floor: Arafel, the cloud darkness at the end of the universe. The final dissolution, a trapdoor. She dropped into a smaller chamber, carved into the stone walls a message in the old language, a REVERENDMOT, HERWIL, LREADMY, WORDS. IBEQYOEATHTOYOUAMYFEARANDLONESS WHATISSURVIVALOTHERSOUL. WHATISSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERSURVIVALOTHERS Meteorniaofpensonaldespai. Audrade climbed out, face wet. She picked up a brick of melange and held it, feeling its weight, the faint cinnamon burn against her palm. The tyrant's accusation was still echoing in the stone. Shiena was waiting. What did you find? The truth. and a burden I'm not sure any of us can carry. From deeper in the sietch, a tremor ran through the floor stone settling, or something else. Odrade set the brick down. The Alliance of Deception. 3 days later, Odrade summoned the Tleilaxu master. He entered wary, knowing she had let him stew. "You've had time to consider your position," she said. "Why do you remain silent?" "My position? You think you give us a choice?" "Man is but a pebble dropped in a pool," she quoted. "And if man is but a pebble, then all his works can be no more." His face went pale. The words were from the secret great belief. No Powinda should know them. Odrade made the hand sign of a Zensuni priest. The little man's mouth opened soundlessly. "The Shariat needs you yet," the senior security mother said in the ancient Islamiyat tongue. "We are not Powinda. The sisterhood has known the great belief since the days of the Prophet. We preserved it in secret while building the institutions that would one day make its restoration possible, every word a lie. But he desperately wanted to believe. You wrote the Atreides Manifesto," he whispered. "You, a reverend mother, to prepare the way. The old faiths are dying. The time has come for an alliance between the people of the Shariat and the Bene Gesserit, who have been their secret guardians for 3,000 years. The Tleilaxu master stared, the tension drained from him. "I have been a fool, a useful fool. You brought the face dancers, now you're going to give us more. The axolotl tanks, the secrets of the ghola process, the truth about what you implanted in Duncan, and cooperation against the Honored Matres. You ask too much." "I ask what the Shariat would want you to give." He had his lie, she had her alliance. The Mother Superior's burden. At Chapter House, Mother Superior Terraza had not slept again. Belanda, senior council member and ally of the dead Yu, was demanding Odrade's head. "She's gone rogue," Belanda had said. "She made an alliance with the Tleilaxu without consulting us. Kill her." Terraza could not explain that the alliance was her own idea. She sat at her desk and read Bur's Malice report. Teg's tree marks located, Najgalob suspected, funeral marker in place. A notation in the breeding projections caught her eye. Possible link to Siona gene. Atreides' ancestry of ghola may interact with Wormrider ability. The pattern was becoming clearer. The tyrant's message, his accusation, his bequeathal, he had known this moment would come. She sent to Burzmali, "Find Teg, recover the ghola, protect them at all costs." She sent to Odrade, "Help is on the way, carry out the plan." Deliberately incomplete, knowing Odrade would fill the gaps. The closest she could come to an apology. The ambush at the No Globe. On Gammu, unnatural snow fell. Teg decided they had to move. He had marked trees for a rendezvous with Burzmali, but the Honored Matres were faster. They came like gray ghosts from the whiteness, face dancers in faceless one masks, a dozen in the first sweep. "Go," Teg shouted. "Upslope. Burzmali should be there." The imprinter grabbed Duncan's arm. The ghola resisted one moment, a warrior's refusal to retreat, then fled with her into the snow. Teg turned. He was old, but he was a mentat. He saw the flanking movement, the delaying force, the strike team moving to cut off the escape all in 3 seconds. His last gun fired. He vaporized the nearest attacker, swept the flanking group, unlimbered the antique Harkonnen weapon, and fired from the hip. Gray shapes fell back. 30 seconds more. That was all the fugitives needed. The stunner came from upslope from the direction his people had fled. It caught him in the chest. Every muscle went rigid. Teg fell backward into the snow. A gray mask leaned over the old Bashar. "We have the Bashar fend of the ghola." And somewhere upslope, the imprinter and Duncan ran on into the white, the trap closing behind them in silence. The next phase of the Sisterhood's desperate gamble was about to begin. Episode 3. The T-Probe and the Cascade. They called it a T-Probe, no Ixian stamp. The functionary who had read Teg's identity through the Kalmai was still in the room, his breathing shallow and nervous. The woman they called Matterly worked a console. A green light winked. Teg's mentat capacities assembled the data with desperate speed. He had taken enough shear to protect a corpse's mind for a year, instinct warning him that something worse than death was coming. But the T-probe functioned despite shear. That could only mean one thing. This device was from the scattering, something that could bypass the one defense the Sisterhood trusted absolutely. He felt the probe's first touch, not pain yet, but a presence, as though something cold had entered his nervous system and was tasting the wiring. "Perhaps you've set it too low." Materly's voice, casual and cruel. The probe opened his body. It seized control of his muscles, his senses, his autonomic functions. Teg had withstood truth-sayer questioning, mentat pressure, nerve induction, and worse. None of that prepared him for being turned into a passenger in his own flesh. Odors assaulted him, feces, vomit, the stench of a burning city. The probe was feeding them directly into his sensory cortex. It was learning him, cataloging what made him flinch. "Reading clear," the functionary said. "He's loaded with shear, but we're getting through. What priority?" "The ghola. Where is the ghola?" The probe sent a command into Teg's throat. His mouth opened, but the words that came out were not what they wanted. "The ghola is where you cannot reach him. He knows what he is." Silence. Teg had not known he could resist. The shear was helping. His mentat overlay was running beneath the shear barrier, a split awareness that let him watch his body being violated while his mind stayed cold. But something else was happening. The probe was learning him, yes, and he was learning the probe. Maximum pain will override the sheer saturation. Hellbreak. Maximum pain came. Every nerve fired simultaneously, a white-hot wire drawn through every synapse, the complete erasure of everything that was not pain. His body convulsed. His back arched off the table, and somewhere in that burning white field, the mentat found a door, not a metaphor, an actual neurological pattern. The probe could not enter his deepest memory paths without him feeling it. The rhythm was mechanical, predictable. A machine had rules. If he could anticipate the probe's next intrusion, he could move ahead of it. And if he could move ahead of it, the functionary leaned close. "Why did you come to Gammu specifically for this ghola?" Teg's eyes opened. He had not commanded them to open. The probe had not commanded them to open. They opened because he had separated himself from both his own reflexes and the machine's control. Materly stepped back. "His eyes are open. That's not supposed to happen." Teg sat up. The restraints were unbuckled, his hands moving faster than the human eye could follow. He was standing now. The functionary had not moved. His mouth was still forming the next question. Materly's hand was still reaching for the alarm. Teg could see the air currents in the room, the slow drift of dust motes, the functionary's eyelids completing about 1/3 of a blink. He killed the functionary with a single blow to the throat. The man was dead before his body began to fall. Matterly screamed. The sound stretched into a long, low note. Teg stepped past her, shorted the probe's data storage with a precise jab, and crushed her throat before she finished the sentence. The third interrogator tried to run. Teg decapitated him. 3 bodies on the floor, the probe console dark. He stood in the shack, breathing hard, and felt his time sense snap back to normal. He had killed 3 trained interrogators in less than a heartbeat. He looked at his hands, an old man's hands, liver spotted, knuckles swollen, but they had just moved faster than any human weapon, faster than anything the scattering had ever produced. The T-probe had not broken him. It had awakened something. He stepped into gray dawn light. The shack where the T-probe had held him sat at the compound's outer edge beside a guard post, with a single sentry and a scanlizer station behind plate glass. Honored Matre compounds spread before him, scanning devices sweeping the perimeter, guards at their posts. Teg saw the paths between them not with his eyes but with a doubled vision that showed him where they would be in 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. He walked those paths at a speed that made him invisible. The whirlwind. In the aftermath, the survivors would say it was like a storm. Teg moved through the compound from its outer edge inward. He did not use weapons. His hands were faster than projectiles. A guard saw something a blur and raised his lasgun. Teg took the weapon, bent the barrel, killed the guard before the bent metal hit the floor. 2 more rounded the corner. He was behind them before they reached it. He killed an honored matre who tried to use voice on him, her mouth not even open, and he was already past her, and she was already dead. He killed a face dancer who shifted through 3 identities before collapsing into a gray null shape. He killed technicians, functionaries, anyone wearing the orange contact lenses of the command structure. When the survivors counted the dead, they would find 53 bodies. The attack had lasted 7 heartbeats. At the center of the compound, he paused. His doubled vision showed him the scanlizer operators. One reaching for a comset, one staring at the display that showed nothing. He was not a presence the machines could read. He thought of the ancient Honored Matre's words, the one he had met before the rampage began. The muck. That was what she had called ordinary people, the muck who must be controlled. He felt the attraction of that thinking. He was not like them anymore. He was something the T-probe had made, something the tyrant's design had made. The long Atreides bloodline stretching back to Siona, a capacity for prescient vision and physical transcendence that had lain dormant for 3,500 years, until a machine from the scattering woke it. He was the weapon the tyrant had bred. The thought should have horrified him. Instead, it made him smile. And the smile was the most compassionate thing he had ever felt, because he understood now what the Horrors could never understand, that the power they sought was not control but service, and that he was about to serve them the only way they could receive. The Scanlizer operators died before they heard him move. Outside, Muzaffar waited the field marshal from Dur. The betrayer who had hosted him and delivered him to the honored Matre Muzaffar raised a weapon, fired. Teg was not there anymore. He was behind Muzaffar. He took the weapon. He broke it. "Tell your commanders," Teg said. "Tell them the Bashar sends his regards." He left Muzaffar alive, not out of mercy, but because someone needed to spread the fear. The guide and the disguise. While Teg learned what the T-probe had made of him, Duncan walked through the forest of Gammu disguised as a Tleilaxu master. An old woman with glittering gray-green eyes had done the transformation in an algae-shielded room, shaved body hair, bleached skin, a watch cap covering his distinctive dark curls, a loose gray robe. "You are now a Tleilaxu master. Your name is Woz. You do not speak unless your guide speaks first. You are being escorted to Isai for negotiations with the Honored Matres." The guide called himself Tomza, true name Ambitorm, a small man with a softly deceptive voice and the reflexes of a professional killer. He kept the ghola on a long lead cord, designed to whip him out of danger, not hold him close. For 3 nights they traversed hidden paths and abandoned animal tunnels. When scanners brushed them a fizzing sensation in the gut, Tomza explained Ixian technology they would drop and browse like native animals. The lazy ones see a browsing pattern and move on. They're looking for fugitives running, not animals feeding. At dawn on the 3rd day, they reached a shelter, a ruined Harkon counting outpost, walls blackened by old fires. Through a monoscope, Duncan saw Yisai for the first time. His stomach turned. He remembered this place, the flesh pits, the slave markets. Barony, the Harkonnens had called it. The Bene Gesserit had renamed it Yisai and planted gardens and pretended the past could be erased. But the ground remembered, and so did he. "They are taking you in tonight," Tomza said. "There's a safe house. Burzmali will meet you there." After that, a high, singing note. Tomza's eyes erupted in blood. He fell forward, a dart embedded in his skull. Gray shapes closed from 3 sides. Face dancers, not the old models. These moved with the precision of trained soldiers. The net came down. The stunner hit the ghola across the back of the neck, and Duncan had time for one clear thought before darkness took him. They knew where the safe house was. The trap. The imprinter had not wanted to wear the dragon robe. It was a garment taken from a dead honored matre. Sarafa had explained its significance with satisfaction. "She had killed 4 of my people. I killed her and took her robe. Now you will wear it and walk into Yisai as a great honored matre, and no one will dare question you." The plan was Bird's Malus, built on the old Bashar's principle of audacity. Hide in plain sight, use the enemy's own arrogance against them. Lucilla would pose as a great honored matre inspecting the Gammu operation. Bird's Molly, disguised as a merchant named Scar, would appear to be her playfemme customer. She knew the risks. She was the sisterhood's finest imprinter. She knew how to project the particular blend of sexual confidence and casual cruelty that the Horrors had made their signature. But she also knew what she was suppressing, a hatred for the people of Gammu that had been growing since she had seen the city's streets. They had passed a hypnobong where children no older than 10 lay in drugged stupors, a marketplace where a futar, one of the half-human carnivores bred during the scattering, was being sold to a scarred woman who examined its teeth before paying, a filthy commercial where an old woman with silver eyes told them she was once a priestess of the divided god on Arrakis. A Rakian priestess, Lucilla had said, and immediately regretted it. The old woman had looked at her with something that was not quite hope. "You know of Arrakis? I was brought here by the Tleilaxu. They said I would serve the faith. But the faith," she retreated into some private desolation. The imprinter had wanted to feel compassion. Instead, she felt revulsion. This woman was a shell, a hollow thing reduced to begging in a slum. The Gammu keep had shielded her from this. Yu had kept the ghola in a cultivated garden, and she had not understood until this moment what Gammu really was. She hated it. She hated these people. She hated the way they surrendered to degradation without a fight. Hatred is dangerous for a reverend mother. The thought surfaced with the force of long training. Hatred was an attachment. So was love. The sisterhood had taught her to feel neither, to observe human weakness without being dragged into its gravity. But standing in that commercial, Lucilla felt the wall inside her crack. Hatred opens the door to love, she said aloud. Brzmale looked at her sharply. What? Nothing. Let's go. The safe house was a converted madshoot installation the whores had taken over. They descended through security checks, the dragon robe and her cold stare carrying them past every barrier, and entered a reception room lined with place panels. Behind one of those panels, someone was watching. The young woman stepped out. She was beautiful in the way honored matres were always beautiful, aggressive, hungry beauty that demanded attention rather than earned it. Orange contact lenses, a body that moved with trained sensuality. I am Murbella, newly robed. I was not informed a great honored matre was coming. Lucilla let the silence stretch. The imprinter training was automatic, the slight tilt of the head establishing dominance, the controlled breathing suggesting unlimited sexual power held in reserve. The younger woman's confidence flickered. Where is the ghola? We captured him. I was about to begin his education when you arrived, but great honored matre, perhaps you would prefer take me to him. Murbella hesitated. Brzmale shifted his weight. The plas panel flickered. Someone moved in the observation room. Lucilla read the signs in a single sweep and knew the trap had already sprung. The young honored matre moved toward Brzmale. Her body was a blur faster than normal, close to a reverend mother's synaptic bypass. She struck him across the temple and he went down. Then she turned to face the imprinter, her face transformed by a smile of pure predatory pleasure. We know you're not one of us. We've known since you entered the magshoot. Did you think we wouldn't recognize the walk of a Bene Gesserit whore? Lucilla attacked 30 years of training, reactions honed by the sisterhood's finest combat instructors. She had sparred with Teg, with Patron, with instructors who could kill a man with 3 fingers. The younger woman was fast, but she was faster. She closed the distance, executed a sabar that her opponent had not trained to counter, and pinned her to the floor with a grip compressing the nerve bundles behind her ears. Murbella went utterly still. Her eyes widened shock, and something else. And, oh, recognition that she had just been beaten by a superior. We have the ghola, she whispered. I was about to bed him, has already under. He won't resist. None of them resist. But you are a great honored matre, aren't you? You are the real thing. Through the play's panel, the imprinter saw Duncan. He lay on a cushioned platform, eyes half closed, limbs relaxed. The honored matre technique, whatever combination of drugs and voice-patterned assault they used, had already taken hold. The safe house was a lie, and the ghola she had been sent to imprint was about to be consumed by a weapon she could not counter. The cascade. Duncan had died many times. He knew that now. The Tleilaxu had grown 12 versions of him. 12 Duncan Idahos pulled from cells preserved since the tyrant's empire. 11 had been killed, murdered by Honored Matres, by Tleilaxu factions, by accidents that were not accidents. The 12th was him, and under the assault of the young Honored Matre, the walls between those lives were coming down. The Sardaukar sword came first, the one he had died under in the Emperor's throne room, harkened in uniforms on Sardaukar bodies, Paul's face somewhere above him going dark. Then the axolotl tanks, bright lights, padded mechanical hands rotating his newborn body, and a mound of female flesh Tleilaxu, monstrous. Immobilized, connected to metal containers by a maze of dark tubes. Then the worm. The tanks were not tanks. They were women, Tleilaxu women, surgically altered and chemically suppressed, converted into living incubators. He remembered emerging into light and seeing that mound of flesh, the tubes, the bright surgical lamps. The Tleilaxu used their own females as machines. The sisterhood had known this. The sisterhood had not cared, and now Murbella was on top of him, and her hands were doing things that shorted out his conscious mind. This was not simple seduction. This was a sensory assault calibrated to overwhelm will, to replace selfhood with dependency. had perfected this technique over centuries in the scattering. They could break a man's will in a single night, and he would thank them for it. But the Tleilaxu had also been at work. Duncan felt something unlock. Not his memories. Those had been unlocked by Teg's spinal strike in the no-globe. This was deeper, something planted in the ghola cells before his body was grown. A pattern, a response, a weapon designed to turn an attacker's assault back upon her. His hands moved not by his will, but by the pattern's will. He touched her in ways she had not been trained to resist. His fingers found excitation points her instructors had never mapped. His body moved in a rhythm that was not human. Tleilaxu, ancient Zensuni body knowledge refined over 10,000 years and encoded into his cells. Murbella gasped. Her eyes went wide. She tried to pull away, but her body would not obey. The pattern had her. She was not the predator now. She was the prey. And Duncan felt the last door open. All the previous lives flooded in. Every Duncan Idaho ghola, every death, every resurrection, every moment of love and violence and exhaustion and rage. And he was not one man. He was a composite, a living archive of a single human soul repeated 12 times. The pattern was the key that Tleilaxu had given him a sexual technique that was also a weapon, because sex was the whore's greatest strength, and the Tleilaxu had made him into something that could turn that strength against its wielder. Then the final vision came. A worm, enormous, burning hot in the desert sun, and under the worm, crushed beneath its segments, a human figure. Himself, the worm had a human face, the tyrant's face, Leto I's face, a pattern of sand trout fused into something that had been human once and was now a god of the desert. The worm was pressing him down into the sand, grinding him into the spice essence that sustained the universe. And a voice that was not a voice said, "This is what you are for. This is what you have always been for. You are the pattern. You are the key. You are the one who will speak the language." Duncan screamed. Murbella screamed with him. Through the plas panel, Lucilla saw it happen, the young Honored Matres back arching, her hands clawing at the ghola's throat and then falling away, her body convulsing in an ecstasy that looked like agony. The imprinter did not try to intervene. She had seen enough now to understand. The ghola was not a breeding stud. The ghola was a weapon that worked. Murbella's body convulsed in an ecstasy she had never been taught to control. Her conditioning shattered. Her honored matre training rewritten in a single moment by the weapon that Tleilaxu had planted in a ghola's cells. She tried to kill him. Her hands went to his throat, but she could not. Her body would not let her. The pattern had bound her to him, and the bond was permanent. The Defiance. On Rakis, in the audience chamber of the Great Square at Dar es Balat, the Tleilaxu Master Waf was learning a different kind of lesson about the limits of control. The face dancer who called himself Tuk had been high priest of the divided god for 3 years. He had been created in a Tleilaxu tank, imprinted with the memories of the original Twik lifted from the dead priest's flesh by the new model absorption process and inserted into Rakis' religious hierarchy as the Tleilaxus instrument. He was supposed to be Waf's creature. He was supposed to obey. Now he was refusing. "I will not order the priesthood to attack the Bene Gesserit compound. The sisterhood has demonstrated itself to be the true interpreter of Shai Hulud's message. The girl Shiana commands the worms and the Reverend Mother's protector. If you wish to challenge them, Master Waf, you may do so yourself." Waf stared. His gray-skinned elfin face was expressionless, but his hands were trembling. Face dancers did not refuse orders. Face dancers did not develop independent wills. They were biologics, tools shaped flesh with imprinted minds. They obeyed, always, without question. "I command you," Waf said, and his voice carried the full weight of Tleilaxu dominance. "I am your master. You are my creation." "I am the high priest of the divided god," the false Tuk said. "I am no one's creation. I am the voice of Shai Hulud on Rakis." Taraza watched with the satisfaction of a woman who had anticipated exactly this moment. She had known the face dancers could develop autonomy. The Sisterhood's analysts had predicted it 200 years ago, observing that any sufficiently complex imprint would eventually generate self-awareness. The Tleilaxu, in their arrogance, had never considered this. A tool that perfectly imitates a man for long enough becomes a man. One of the Rockian priests, an elderly man with a voice thin as paper, addressed the false Twek directly. "Your Holiness, the Master's request is reasonable. The Bene Gesserit have usurped. I will go to him now if your conspiracy extends to that, the false Chuk said. But remember this, he knows what is in your hearts. The priest fell silent. Waf's trembling had spread from his hands to his entire body. Taraza spoke. The Chariot sent you here to negotiate, master. But you cannot negotiate with a tool that has outgrown its function. We are prepared to accept the high priest as our ally, the sisterhood and the priesthood, united in service to the divided God. She used the language of the Islamiyat. The priest could not understand it, but the Tleilaxu master did. His face went gray. You knew he would refuse me. We hoped, Taraza said. Waf reached toward his sleeve. The dart throwers were gone. Odrade had removed them after the death of the original Chuk, and for a moment he looked like an animal caught in a trap. Then his expression shifted. He was a master of the Chariot. He had not survived 100 years of Tleilaxu politics by refusing to adapt. So be it, the high priest serves the divided God. We serve the divided God. Let us serve together. The false Chuk smiled. It was not a face dancer's smile. It was a priest's smile, serene, confident, and entirely beyond the Tleilaxu master's control. The hold. Later that same day, Waf gathered Taraza, Odrade, and a handful of senior sisters for the demonstration they had demanded. The Honored Matres control men through what they call the orgasmic hold, he said. His voice had recovered its authority. I experienced it myself when I met with their delegate on the guild transport. I was saved only by anger. I remembered what they had done to our people in the scattering, the temples they desecrated, the masters they tortured and killed. Rage gave me a moment of clarity, and in that moment I used my dart throwers. He gestured. Two faced dancers entered, a male and a female, both in plain robes. The female was one of the new models, indistinguishable from a natural human. My creation, Waf said to the female. Show them. What followed was brief, clinical, and utterly devastating. The female touched the male, and the male's body responded with total surrender. It was not simple sexual response. It was the complete erasure of will. The male became a vessel for the female's control, his nervous system an extension of her desire, his consciousness a fading echo. The hold is synaptic, the Tleilaxu master said. It affects the amygdala, the hypothalamus, the limbic system. It triggers a cascade that locks the victim into a dependency cycle. Each exposure increases the need for the next. The Honored Matres use it to control their armies, their administrators, their breeding populations. They can maintain a planetary government with 100 women and 1,000 enslaved males. Odrade was not focused on the hold itself. She was watching Shiana, who had been permitted to observe from the doorway. The girl's eyes were bright, too bright. Her breathing had quickened. She was not afraid, she was excited. Odrade made a note she would act on immediately. Shiana's education would have to include sexual inhibition training. If the girl tried to use this technique on a man, the results would be catastrophic. She was a worm rider, a living saint, and barely 12 years old. The combination was explosive. Anger saved me, Waf repeated. The hold suppresses all emotion except desire. If you can find a different emotion, rage, grief, fear, and hold onto it, you can break free. But the moment of breaking is extremely brief, and the Honored Matres are trained to recognize it. Taraza nodded. Thank you, Master Waf. In exchange, we will offer access to our own records on the Honored Matres command structure. The demonstration was over. Both sides had what they wanted. The alliance, fragile, built on mutual deception, was holding. But outside the chamber, thopters were circling. The death. The attack came at sunset. Taraza had stepped onto the terrace to watch the gathering dark. Shiana was inside, rehearsing the dance she had performed for the priests. Odrade was at the console. The air was thick with the afterheat of the desert day, and somewhere in the city a drum was beating the long rhythm of the Siainok. The Mother Superior heard the thopter before she saw it. A change in the engine pitched something dropping out of the sky, dropping fast. She turned. A beam of white-hot light cut the terrace in half. The first hit took her legs at the knee. Taraza fell. The pain was immediate and absolute. She did not scream. A reverend mother could control pain the way a pilot controlled a thopter. She felt the body's panic, the surge of adrenal shock, the desperate racing of the heart, and she put all of it aside. The transfer. Must do the transfer. Odrade was already moving. She had seen the beam, heard the thopter, calculated the angle of the attack in the same instant Taraza fell. She dove across the terrace, staying below the line of fire, and reached her just as the second beam cut across the Mother Superior's hip, widening the wound, making survival impossible. Dar Taraza's voice was a whisper. Take it. Now. Their foreheads touched. The transfer was a Bene Gesserit sacrament, ancient as the breeding records. Taraza's memories flowed into Odrade, not just the facts of her life, but the feel of them, the weight of her decisions. The hours of sleepless planning, the rage she had suppressed since the day the Horrors had killed her first sisters. Dar and Tar, Odrade whispered, the nickname that only the two of them had used. Taraza smiled. The expression did not belong on a face that was already draining of blood. Then she was gone. Odrade stood. Shiana had appeared in the doorway, her face white. No more beams came. Is she dead? Yes, I am the Mother Superior now. You? Odrade looked at the girl. She felt Taraza's memories settling into her thousands of pieces of a life that was now hers to continue. She knew what Taraza had known. The plan, the peril, the forces arrayed against them. There were factions inside the sisterhood itself that had opposed Taraza's plan. Some of them were still on the council. The alliance with Waff was a lie built on larger lies. Duncan was a weapon the sisterhood did not fully understand and might not fully control. We're leaving, Odrade said, the pump room below the main cistern. There's an access shaft that leads to the desert wall. What rendezvous? She gathered glow globes and emergency supplies. Someone's coming for us? I don't know who, but someone is.